I turned back to the deputy who was finishing up searching me and checking off the property I had brought all the way from Las Colinas. She said, "Do you need to turn your phone on and get any numbers out of it? This will be your last chance before sealing up the bag with all your things." And I said, "No." I said, "I'll be okay without them." I said, "I have the ones that I need memorized." And then my thoughts was, I'll have my phone in a few minutes anyway. So getting more numbers from my phone did not concern me. She said, "You will follow Jean, the nurse, to start your medical intake." I saw the nurse come out from a small office that was kind of separated from the holding cells. And I looked at the other inmates through the plexiglass windows while trying to read words that someone had carved in the walls. And one of it said, "Fuck the police, F-U-K." And so as I stood there, I heard Miss Weeks, "Follow me, please." She seemed polite and compassionate enough to settle my racing heart. I sat down at her desk and I looked at her face while she asked me some medical questions and took my blood pressure. I said, "I'm sorry if I smell." I said, "I've not had a shower or a change of clothes in 8 days." I wondered, as that blood pressure cuff squeezed my bicep, if talking about my transport would make my blood pressure go up. She said, "I don't smell you." She said, "That's pretty normal." She said, "We see inmates come in here from a long transport without having a shower for days at a time. So this is fucking normal, She said, "Maybe you can get a shower when you get into general population." And I just thought, general population? Whatever, woman. I'm about to get out of here. My bond's going to be set and I'm walking out that door. She said, "Have you been out of the country in the last 30 days? And I said, "Well, I was in Mexico." I said, "But that's been over a month now. I was arrested at the border and housed at a women's jail near San Diego." She took my arm and inserted a long needle for a TB test. I clenched my jaws and tried my best not to scream in her face. She said, "Now don't rub that area." She said, "I'll check it in 3 days to see if you're negative." 3 days? I'm not going to be here 3 days. She said, "I don't want to travel." She said, "I'd be scared to death something like that would happen to me." Well, anyway, the nurse got up from the desk and told me she was going to put me in a holding cell until they decided whether or not they were going to house me or in medical or put me in general population. And she said, "Are you hungry?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And so all I could think about was that breakfast I had eaten at Taco Bell earlier that morning. It was one of the most disgusting meals I think I've ever had outside of jail. Now I was looking over at this trustee holding a thick plastic tray, praying that the inside did not contain a bologna sandwich. Well, the nurse walked me over to the holding cell, and they placed me in the cell with the plastic tray for lunch in a nasty, nasty cell that was right across from the bonding or the booking counter. I had to look right into the face of that big fat ass. That mean bitch who judged me right off. I was having to stare at her the whole time. And I could not for the life of me remember where I knew her from. I knew her from somewhere. But anyway, I opened up my lunch tray, and inside was 4 pieces of white bread, some fake ham, some fake cheese, some plain chips, and 2 chocolate chip cookies. I made 1 sandwich and I forced it into my mouth, doing the best I could to swallow it. 15 minutes in that holding cell felt like hours. I wanted to use the phone. I wanted to, let people that I love know I had Finally made it back to Georgia after 8 days of a van of hell. And I noticed the nurse standing at the counter talking to that Hispanic deputy that had patted me down and searched me when I first walked in. And I knocked on the glass and I yelled, "Can I please make a phone call?" The nurse just looked at me, shrugged her shoulders, and then walked back to her office. And she was treating me a whole lot different than she had treated me during my intake. I knew something was not right. An officer was standing at the corner of the booking counter with a tall, middle-aged man. And then the man was pleading, I'm not trying to cause any trouble. Officer, come on, y'all, come on, let me go. You'll never see me again, just let me go. Eventually, the man was placed in the holding cell next to me, and I could hear him yelling to that same woman, but I could not hear all he was saying to her, and she yelled, "I'm contacting the judge immediately and getting the both of you out of this jail. You ain't bringing that virus in here to me." She looked over at me through that glass, and then she just made a loud coughing sound. She was like, right in my face. Like, she got as close to that glass as she could. And I just began to feel more anxious. I did not feel safe, and I did not feel protected as a human. The nurse came back out of the office, refusing to look my way. She stepped back over to the Hispanic deputy, and they were entering my information in the computer. She held up a piece of paper like this to whisper, so I couldn't see her lips moving. And then they both gave me a quick glance like that and then continued to look away. And I thought, something's not right here. Something's wrong. No one can tell me where I'm going or if I'm going to be getting a bond out of here today. The deputy walked over to my cell door and let me out. And she said, "You're going to medical. You have your first appearance with the judge Monday morning at 9 a.m. I held back my tears as much as I could. And I just tried to encourage myself about the 4.5 weeks of jail time that I'd already served. And I thought I can make it another day and a half. And anyway, I heard medical was a lot better than being in general population. This will be a breeze. Follow me, Miss Weeks. She said, "I found some good shampoo for you to use." And she said, "I'm going to allow you to shower before getting dressed out." She said, "I know it had to be horrible going without a shower for 8 days. The water's going to come out of that shower head and it's going to be cold." She said, "Just keep pressing the button a few times." And she said, "It may heat up a little bit for you." She walked me into this concrete room. The floor was scuffed. The room was dark. And there was a shower head and a floor drain in the corner of this room. She said, "Strip down." She said, "You will give me everything except for your socks, shoes, and underwear." And she said, "Here's some flip-flops to shower in." She said, "Take your time and wash as long as you need to." I stood there naked, reminding her I needed some pads because I was on my period. The water was beginning to warm up enough for me to wet my hair and body. The place reminded me of an old, dirty animal shelter. I took the large bottle of this VO5 shampoo and I squeezed a large amount into my hand. And as I lathered the shampoo through my hair, I cried, "Thank you so much." I said, "Thank you so much for this shower, ma'am." I said, "This feels so good." I said, "It's been so long and I feel so dirty." She said, "It's no problem." She said, "I'm sorry we don't have any towels back here." She said, "But I can give you an extra set of these orange clothing, the jail clothes for you to dry off with." She said, "Just throw them down the floor when you're finished." I was so thankful that someone there was showing me a little more compassion and care. And then I hear the deputy yelling, just standing there with those pads in her hands. And I was standing there cold, wet and anxious. And she took that bag of maxi pads and she said, as much as she could, she was like, here you go. And she took those pads and she threw them as hard as she could to hit me. And I was so beat down, and I was just like, thank you. And I just tried to be as humble as I could. And as I'm reading this right now, I wish somebody would go kick her fucking ass. That's what she needs. I mean, guys, I'm sorry. I'm angry. But I did not need to be treated like I had done the most horrible crime in the world. You know, she didn't know my story. Anyway, so I went over to the window where that deputy was staying, who had been helping me, and I watched her close all my clothes and all my belongings up in a big black bag, and then hung them on a hanger. And I thought, well, I said, at least I'll bond out of here Monday morning. I said, I'll be happy to get home. And she said, listen, not everyone gets a bond. She said, I just don't want you to get your hopes up. And I just stood there looking confused at her. And then she kind of changed her words. She said, but you should be fine, though. It's almost like she knew something, but she could have gotten in trouble for giving me more information than what she should have been. I said, this was all making sense now. All the whispering in front of me, the nurse changing her energy and her look earlier. And I knew, I was like, I'm not getting a bond tomorrow. And I was just like, God, please help me. You know, not again. And I said, can I please use the phone? Please. I said, my family has not heard from me in over a week. I said, they have no idea where I am. They don't know what's happened to me since I've left California. And I just pleaded. She said, I will do my best to try and get you a phone when I can. And she said, you know, wait till we get back to medical. And so I traveled down this long, wide, dark hall. The floors were concrete and they were covered with shiny finish that reflected the cinder block walls. The floors were, the floors were clean. But anyway, we entered a locked door into a small area with only 5 cells. She said, you go in there. She said, you go in cell number 5. And she said, she said, after you get done making your phone call. So I picked up the phone, and after pressing the button, and the recording wanted a pin. And I had no idea how to use this again. You know, here I was with the phone and no way of knowing how to use it. So I said, I don't have a PIN number. I said, does anyone know how to get me a PIN number? And I was just panicking. And they were just like, I don't know how to fix this. You'll just have to wait until someone knows what to do. At that moment, I realized that no one really gave a shit if I talked to my family or not. And I just hung that phone up, and I took more directions from that deputy. She said, pick up that mat and follow me. Over against the wall that separated the cell medical inmates was the medical staff, and there lay these stacks of 2-inch mats. I picked my mat up, and while the deputy was holding this container of like toilet paper and I can't remember what all was in there. It was mostly just like toilet paper and soap and hair gel, stuff that I couldn't use. And so my cell was pretty far away from the staff, and it was behind an extra locked door. A male nurse stepped down from behind a tall counter and grabbed a red tablet. He said, here, he said, take this. He said, maybe you can figure out how to do it, or maybe you can talk to a trustee that can show you how to email on it. I walked in that cell carrying a medium-sized plastic container. And then that had somebody's name written on the side, my mat, and a couple blankets. The door slammed behind me, and I looked down at that red tablet in confusion. For 3.5 weeks, when I wanted to contact those I love, I was able to pick up a payphone and call collect. I sat down on that 2-inch mat and quickly remembered my friend's email address. And this was the only way I was going to be able to reach anyone at home. And so I sent her a email, and I just said, hey, I made it to Rome. I said, please let my dad know that I'm in here and that I have a bond hearing on Monday at 9 a.m. And I said, thanks a bunch. And so unless you had money for what they called a gold pass, you could only use the tablet for 15 minutes every 2 hours. And I felt helpless. I felt trapped. I had been in this cell only a few minutes. My hair was still wet from the shower, and this made me so cold. I banged on the plexiglass window, and I yelled through that small door, like, nurse, nurse. And the middle nurse, he walked over there, and I said, hey, I said, can I please get another blanket? I said, I'm cold. He said, no, you only get one. And I started crying. And I got up under that one stained white sheet and that blanket, and I tried to use my warm breath as much as I could to warm the chill off my body in that cell. And then I just held on tight to that tablet, hoping that I would, that my email would be seen by my friend and that I would get a reply back. Then I was able to just lay there with that blanket over my head until my hair dried.